This is Laure, Frog Mom, and I'm here today with Dylan Tomine. Dylan, welcome to this Google Hangout. In the book that you wrote, it's basically like a biography of a year in your life. It's divided into 4 seasons, and you explain how with your family you got very connected to nature on the island where you live. So you live on an island in Puget Sound. So now we know that you live on an island. So tell me, how old are your children?
Well, in the book, they're 6 and 3. My daughter Skyla is 6, and my son Weston is 3 in the book. But they are now, it's hard for me to believe, but they're now 12 and 9.
Oh dear. Well, so it's time has gone by since you first wrote the book. So I would love to know how that has changed, anything at all, in your approach to nature. You know, as they grew up as tweens, which they are now. How is it different now than it was then, with connecting to nature and being closer to the ground?
Well, with little kids, I think things are actually more flexible. It's easier because the outside, the structure of life hasn't imposed quite so much. So it's easier to run out on a weekday and go fishing. I work for myself from home as a writer. So when the tides are right or the weather's right, it was much easier when they were smaller to just go out and go fish or pick mushrooms or whatever. Now there's lots of other things that impose on a person's schedule. And so with their school and homework, and both my kids play organized sports. So there are other activities. There's lots of structural scheduling things that make it a little more complicated.
So when you do manage to take them out with you, either out on the boat or out in the woods, do they have favorite activities that they like to do with you?
Yeah, I think so. They both love to fish. And so fishing is always a favorite, and it doesn't really matter what the, we fish for salmon a lot in the summer, but they're just as happy to sit on a dock and fish for a little perch, or they both really like fishing. We started doing a little more fly fishing last summer. They were kind of old enough to wade around in rivers and deal with the different aspects of fly casting. So we did some of that last summer. But they like most all of it. I think, we pick oysters and dig clams and do a lot of different things. They both like to go crabbing because you're pulling up these big traps from the bottom of the ocean, and you never know what's going to be in them. And sometimes it's an octopus, sometimes it's a giant starfish. One time we had a small shark had wedged itself into the crab trap, which is usually a giant pain in the butt for me, but for the kids it was super exciting and fun. So yeah, they like to do pretty much everything.
So as you've shared all these experiences, incredible experiences with your children, it looks like they're extremely comfortable with the wilderness around them. They are not afraid of handling animals, or even crabs, who most children might be afraid of. It looks like they are totally fine with it. They are used to nature in that way.
Yeah, I think there's there's some technique involved in how you pick up a crab, and they were both very careful learning how to do it. Weston's still a little bit reluctant, but Skyla is sort of a natural fishing and foraging predator. And so from when she was really small, she'd just reach in there and watch how somebody else did it. And, our Dungeness crabs are pretty big, and they will, they can tear you up if they get a hold of you, but she's always been really into just handling them and dealing with them. So.
Can you show with your hands how big they get?
Oh, let's see if I can, let me adjust this here a little bit just so they're let's see if that, if they're like this with their legs, the shell is, sometimes 7.5 inches across the back, and with their claws and stuff. I mean, it's a pretty good size animal, and they'll put the clomp on you if they get the chance.
Oh, dear. Well, that sounds a bit scary.
But they're delicious.
There is a Dungeness crab recipe in your book. I mean, is it the Christmas one? Boiled Dungeness crab. It's in the winter, so it's coming to be the season, correct? So you are very connected to all the seasons. People usually associate seasons with fruit, to berries, to plants, but not so much with animals, which is actually something quite incredible in your book. There's different animals for different seasons.
Yeah, I think, part of my interest in writing the book was this idea of sort of the rhythm of the seasons, and that if you are outside looking for food, as our ancestors and certainly the Native Americans who are living here for 10,000 years learned about these rhythms of when it's best to harvest various shellfish, when it's safe. A lot of times in the summer months, the shellfish can be poisonous, the clams and oysters. And so some of it has to do with just survival. And then others has to do more like fruits and vegetables. Like you say, it's about availability. So the salmon runs come when they're headed to their rivers to spawn. And so we'll have a push of salmon come into the sound here around the island in the summertime. They'll be in the rivers in the fall, but they're on their way there when we're catching them.
So you live in this incredible place where there's actually salmon, right? Not exactly outside your door, but not very far. But many families live in cities. They don't necessarily have easy access to either the ocean, rivers, or to the woods. But if they were going to inspire their children to live a more sustainable way of life, something more similar, what kind of tips would you give these people who don't live on an island in Puget Sound?
I think that's a great question. What I found with kids is I have this theory that I think that that kids are a lot more in touch with their with the instincts to find food, and I think we all have those instincts. After thousands and thousands of years, they were developed pretty strongly in our psyche of how we survive. But with adults, those instincts are kind of suppressed because we're used to going to the grocery store to get our food. Kids don't have that long history, and so they seem to be more in touch with it. And I think that introducing the idea of food or finding food is automatically really appealing to kids. And so, there's been a lot of talk about nature deficit disorder, or how do we get our kids outside more because they're addicted to computers and screens. And my experience with this has really been that if you attach food to the idea of going outside, that it becomes this sort of natural treasure hunt, and they're excited to do it. Which is a long way of saying that I think even if you live in a city, that you may not go out and catch salmon or crabs or dig for clams, but there's always something to do, and it can be as simple as growing carrots in a pot on an apartment windowsill. It can be as simple as, there's a lot of foraging that goes on in the urban parks even. There's a guy that runs foraging tours in Central Park in the middle of Manhattan in New York City. So I think there's opportunities all over, especially with things like mushrooms and berries, which tend to grow in a lot of urban or suburban areas. And and again, even the simple things like just growing some vegetables, radishes or something in a pot, or even tomatoes, I just found that brings that food element to what the kids are doing, so it's automatically interesting to them.
That's really great advice. And I like that you mentioned the guy who's doing foraging joint Manhattan, because very few people are experts in foraging. And they might get scared of going out there and picking up something that's potentially poisonous.
No, I worry about that.
You worry about that too.
Oh yeah, I mean, hopefully it's clear in the book. I'm about as far from an expert as it can get. I mean, a lot of this I'm figuring out as we go along the way. So what's really helpful is that there are, foraging is one of those activities that there are a lot of people along the way that will mentor or help you, that are willing to teach. And, you know, most of the cities, at least in North America, have a mushroom or a mycological society or club, and they lead mushroom picking tours and teach you how to tell the difference. There is the Puget Sound Mycological Society here in the fall during mushroom season. They set up a desk in Seattle at the University of Washington, and you can bring whatever you pick and show it to them, and they'll tell you what's good to eat and what's not. And I think there's services like that in a lot of places. And I've just found that if you let people know that you want help or that you're interested, that somebody will step up and show you how to do these things.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. There are lots of people who are willing to help and share as you their passion for what they know, what they are really good at. About connecting children to nature. So your children are 9 and 12 right now. I was curious as to at what age you started really sharing with them the fishing and the crabbing and picking mushrooms. I mean, how early did you start?
That was really, I guess I would just say that it was from a very, very early age, because it was mostly motivated by a selfish motivation, because these are things that I wanted to do and have done for most of my life. And so it just seemed the easiest way to keep being able to do them is to bring the kids with me. Excuse me. I had no idea that the kids would really take to it the way they did. I mean, I feel really lucky about that. But, you know, I think Skyla has been fishing with me. I think I started taking her when she was about 2 years old. And a lot of it is finding the appropriate level of what the activity is. So we wouldn't go on, you know, 14-hour fishing days in bad weather. I was pretty selective about it when they were small. And of course, you know, as you probably know, with kids, the key is to bring a lot of snacks.
Yeah.
And so that always makes it, you know, easier and more fun. And Weston's been fishing and picking mushrooms and stuff really since he could walk. And certainly as a parent, there's a lot of fear or worries that go with that. You know, is the terrain too rugged? Is he going to fall down and get hurt? You know, will the boat be making too much movement and they'll fall overboard? I mean, there's a lot of those things that, you know, I'm a worrier by nature. So a lot of it has to do with me kind of battling myself to let the kids go ahead and experience these things. You know, it's funny, when Skyla was first going to start going out in the boat with me, I think she was about 2, maybe 3. I went to the marine supply store and I was looking at the different options for life jackets for little kids. And there was one that was like $12, and there one that was like, I think it was $70. And they looked kind of the same. And I was trying to decide, and a woman walked by me and she said, "Get the more expensive one. Your family will never forgive you if you go cheap on your daughter's life." So my kids have had very expensive life jackets for their whole lives. And I think that the upshot, I don't know if one is actually safer than the other, but I will say that the more expensive life jackets are more comfortable. So it's easier for them to be in them all day.
I expect that would be the case. So you mentioned the cold water, and we are now approaching winter. And it looks like you guys go out pretty much all year round, whatever the weather. Is that correct? I mean, the weather does not stop you really from going out with your kids.
Yeah, that's true. You know, as the weather changes, it's nice. And I tried to kind of talk about this in the book, but it's really nice for me, and I think the kids, to have these traditions of seasonal activities that you look forward to. And so wintertime here usually means that there will be razor clam digging in the near future. Oftentimes there's winter crabbing. There is some winter salmon fishing. Excuse me again. And those things all only happen during these specific seasons. So dealing with the weather, certainly if it's horrible weather, we'd rather stay at home and sit on the couch. But you know, you can pick your spots. It doesn't get really cold here in Puget Sound. It rains quite a bit. It's dark and gloomy a lot. And so sometimes we have to force ourselves to actually go out into it. But usually once we do, it feels like it's worth it. And if, again, like the life jacket thing, I think having really good quality clothing that's right for the weather is important for little kids. You know, I mean, I think maybe it's more important for us older people. I know I get cold a lot easier than the kids do. You know, my son went to school this morning. I think it was 42 degrees Fahrenheit, and he walked out the door wearing shorts and a t-shirt. And as you can see, I'm in my unheated office. So, I think the kids are a little more immune to it, but yeah, I think being wet and cold makes anybody miserable, and so I think that's another good investment, is having the right equipment.
Very, very true.
I have a Facebook page, so it's Dylan Tomine, author. The Facebook page. The content is pretty much the same. It's mostly the blog. I post other things there sometimes, but the blog, which you can find at dylantomine.com. I try and update it once or twice a week with just things from fish conservation to food we're cooking to the different activities we're doing. I realize I've been doing it for several years now. It gets a little bit seasonally repetitive, so I'm trying to take different angles to things as we go.
All right. Well, anyway, I wanted to thank you very much. I wish you a very good day in Puget Sound.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.